Tonight's government exposes what the term NDC deception as it produces evidence they claim show that NDC granted a license for the recent importation of a huge cache of arms that were initially seized by custom officers at the Tema port.
The permit under which these arms were imported was signed by the Honorable James Agalga, Member of Parliament, Deputy Minister for the Interior. And it's curious because at that time we had a conversation about the fact that all major transactions needed to be fed to both sides. And this was issued on the blind side of everybody. Nonetheless,
we have the very latest on this. Remember, the NDC yesterday issued a statement questioning why government issued a license for the importation of the arms. But government tonight is disputing the claims. We interrogate the facts.
This is Top Story with Evans Mensah.
And Top Story is always brought to you by Bond Savings and Loans. Your success, our passion, also brought to you by Gasem Cement, the nation builder. Vodafone, the future is exciting, ready. A nationwide medical health insurance, your healthcare family. In the last few minutes, government has produced evidence it claims exposes what the term NDC deception, producing the evidence that they show the NDC indeed granted license for the recent importation of a huge cache of arms that were initially seized by custom officers at the Tema port. The NDC has just yesterday issued a statement on this, asking the president to place a moratorium on the importation of arms and questioning why government will issue the license at this time. My colleague Benes Abu-Beidu-Lansa has a copy of that statement that was issued yesterday that we brought to you. Just for context, Benes, what did the NDC say about the importation of this arm?
In extracts of that statement, and it says although police investigations appear to point to the fact that the firearms were imported under the license of the Interior Ministry, the NDC is alarmed by government's decision to authorize such importation at a time when the country is grappling with the threat of terrorism on our northern frontier, pervasive vigilantism, and unmitigated armed robberies across the length and breadth of the country. Now, they add that there's no denying the fact that easy access to small arms and light weapons fuels criminal activities such as armed robbery and terrorism. We are also mindful of research findings that suggest there are at the moment nearly 2 million small arms in unlawful circulation in Ghana, a situation which does not augur well for our peace and security. They end the statement by asking government to consider the option of placing a moratorium on the importation of arms until emerging security threats such as terrorism, contract killings, armed robberies and vigilantism are adequately addressed, Evans.
Thank you, Bennett. And so that is the NDC statement that came in yesterday. Fundamentally, the NDC had said, Bennett, as you pointed out, that they are alarmed by government decision to authorize such importation at a time when the country is grappling with the threat of terrorism on a northern frontier, pervasive vigilantism, and unmitigated armed robberies across the length and breadth of our country. Well, in the last few minutes, the Information Minister has been addressing the press conference. He insists, producing evidence to back this claim, that the importation was in fact authorized under the John Mahama administration, and the license for the importation was signed by former Deputy Interior Minister James Agalga. Listen.
So make some information available to the general public. The permit under which these arms were imported was signed by the Honorable James Agalga, Member of Parliament, Deputy Minister for the Interior, on January 5th, 2017. So this permit we are talking about, which allowed these persons to import this cache of arms legally into the country, was issued on the 5th of January 2017 under the signature of the Honorable James Agalga. I have a copy of it here. I'll give a copy to you afterwards. And we find it strange that the very persons who issued the permit for the importation of these arms will today turn around and say that the Akufo-Addo administration has issued permits and therefore has to take the security situation of this country a lot more seriously than it is doing now. Where all of these points of alarm that they raise in this statement, all of these points of alarm that they raise, were they not known to them at the time that they were signing this permit? At the time that they were issuing this permit, all of these points of alarm, were they not known to them? And was the security of the state, which they are talking about today, non-existent at the time when they were issuing this permit? You can't approbate and reprobate. You can't do this. And then when a new administration rather comes in and is the one that takes the necessary efforts to secure the consignment and ensure that it's kept in a place and not necessarily in the hands of persons with doubtful character, then you turn around issuing statements as though something untoward has happened. So the first point we want to make is that indeed the permit that was issued by the NDSC administration. The second point is that it's curious that after the election of 2016, 2 days to the handing over on the 5th of January, at a time of the transition when we had agreed that all major transactions of this nature had to be referred to both sides of the transition team, they issued a permit, and I want to read to you. Permission is granted to YADCO to import the underlisted explosives and accessories for the use of their clients who are all engaged in mining and quarry sectors. 20,000 cases of 500 pieces of shotgun cartridges, 4,000 pieces of hunting shotguns, 500 boxes of percussion caps. 2 days to the transition. And it's curious because at that time we had a conversation about the fact that all major transactions needed to be referred to both sides. And this was issued on the blind side of everybody. Nonetheless, as the consignment arrived into the jurisdiction, in accordance with the standard practice, the consignment was duly inspected and has been delivered at a designated storage area. And state security agencies are taking the necessary steps to ensure that the consignment does not get into the hands of unauthorized persons. When they are done with their initial necessary assessments, any further information that we have on this will make available to the Ghanaian people. But for us, it is instructive to note that this permit under which this importation was done was issued by the NDC administration under the signature of the Honorable James Agalga 2 days to the handing over on the blind side of everybody. And the new administration has ensured that the consignment is inspected, received, kept at the designated storage area, and does not get into the hands of unauthorized persons. And any further information that we find following our immediate inquiries will be made available to the Ghanaian public. That's, I think, the first matter that.
Well, thankfully, I've just been joined on the line right now by James Agalga. He is the former Deputy Interior Minister, the man accused of signing signing off on these consignments of arms and giving the license. One that we just heard from Kojo Nkrumah on was issued 2 days to the swearing in, and Kojo says that was issued on a blind side of everybody. He joins us on the line. Mr. Agalga, thank you for your time here on Top Story.
Yes, thank you.
Let's start with the initial license that Kojo Nkrumah says you issued, which has been the subject of some controversy because the customs officers had initially seized the consignment. He says that you signed and issued that permit and your signature is on the document. Is that the case?
Evans, I wouldn't remember, but I have always maintained that the company in question is known to the Ministry of the Interior. And so if it turns out that the permit that was issued under my signature, I wouldn't have any thing to say about that.
You mean you will not deny it?
Clearly, I haven't seen the permit. If I see it and the signature is indeed mine, I will admit. But as I speak now, I have not seen the document the Honorable Minister for Information, Kojo Nkrumah, has in his custody and possession. If I see and indeed that signature turns to mine, yes, I can see confirmations. But as I talk to you, I haven't seen the document in question. Say that the company in question, Yadco, has at all material times when we're in office known to the Ministry of the Interior as a licensed arms dealer.
Forgive me, we had a challenge briefly with the line. Just to clarify the last point, you're saying that at all material times, Yadco, the company at the center of the importation, was known to the NDC administration as a properly licensed company with the permit to import arms.
Yes, and yes, absolutely. Known to the Ministry of the Interior. The Ministry of the Interior is a state entity as distinct from the NDC as a political party. So let us draw the distinction here. It's very important.
Okay. Back to the license that were granted in the permit. You say you haven't seen Kojo's documents and you can't recall, but since you say the Yadco is known to the Interior Ministry, does it follow that the ministry under your watch granted them the requisite license to operate the business of importing arms?
And so I can't make the confirmation straight away, but the point needs to be stressed that the Ministry of the Interior, as the state entity, which has the legal mandate to issue licenses for the importation of firearms into the country. That is a matter of law. So, but the fundamental point that the NDC has raised, I think those fundamental issues appear to have been lost on the Honorable Kojo Oppong Nkrumah, is that the authorization was made by the current administration. Evans, remember that licenses are not issued in perpetuity. So if the license in question was indeed issued on the 17th, or he says what? 5th of January?
5th, yes, January.
Yes. If it was issued on the 5th of January, that permit could not have been issued in perpetuity. The standard practice at the Ministry of the Interior is that you issue a license for firearms importation and its validity period is 1 year. So if the permit in question, and I haven't seen it, I'm speculating, was issued on the 5th of January, it will expire, or its validity period would not extend beyond a year. So take it 1 year from the 5th of January would be what? 4th of January 2018. But the date of importation or clearance at the port is the 10th of April 2019. So we're talking about 2 clear years. And so one cannot run away from the fact that further authorization must have been done to enable the clearance to be done.
But the fundamental question, Mr. Gaga, the fundamental question remains: did your government, yourself, sign off on this particular consignment of arms that we just witnessed last week that was seized?
Fairness, I have told you that I haven't seen the permit that is in the possession of Honorable Kojo Nkrumah.
You haven't seen it?
So documents that came under my signature were simply too voluminous.
Okay,
and for me to, on the spur of the moment, know which permit came under my signature or not can only be confirmed when I have seen the document that is in his possession.
Okay, because Yadco is known to you, so I can ask this directly. During your time, did you at any point give a license for the importation of particular specific set of arms by Yadco?
I wouldn't remember. But if I see the permit and it's under my signature, I would be able to make the necessary confirmations or not. But I have always maintained that Yadco is a company that is licensed and is known to the Ministry of the Interior. But let us now get into very fundamental issues. And I have insisted that issues pertaining to weapon permits has a validity period of 1 year. So I'm saying that if Honorable Kojo Nkrumah is saying that on the permit that is in his possession, I haven't seen it, was signed on the 5th of January, what it means is that that particular permit would have a validity period of 1 year. I am saying that the date of clearance and importation is on the 9th of April 2019, 2 clear years after the permit was issued.
But Mr. Gaga,
Evans, can I land?
Yes.
Evans, it's important. Let me land.
Please.
So I am saying that without further authorization, the clearance wouldn't be possible. We are not saying that the NDC government did not issue permits for, weapons. We are not. That's not the point we're making. If you go back into history, all successive governments definitely issued permits for licensed weapon importers to carry on their trade by bringing in weapons and to sell legitimately to citizens who are desirous of owning firearms for their own protection. But the fundamental issue is that, granted that I signed that permit, things have changed rapidly. At the time that permit was signed, vigilantism was not heightened. Ayawasu didn't happen. At the time the permit was signed, our northern frontier was not under attack by terrorists who have moved from Niger, Mali, and are now on the northern frontier. So many things have happened. Armed robberies did not increase by 27% at the end of 2017. So a lot of things have changed rapidly. And the NDC statement is simply saying that, listen, let us be responsible here.
Yeah, but Mr. Gaga, just proceeding on your same assumption, granted that you indeed signed it, was it fair just yesterday to issue a statement in which you say that you are alarmed by government decision to authorize such importation? Granted that you did the authorization in 2017 January.
If I did, that statement wouldn't be unfair because a lot of things have happened. A lot of change has happened on the security front and rapidly. That is exactly the point I'm making.
No, but
I have alluded to, for instance, the statement talks about unmitigated robberies. The statistics shows that the security situation in 2016 was not the same as the security situation now, and even after 2016. So that is a reason why the NDC statement is simply saying that, okay, Mr. President, would you consider the option of placing a moratorium on arms importation until such a time that the security situation is normalized and brought under control? What is wrong with that?
Mr. Gaga, so here is a copy of the document you signed. I have a copy here. I want to read it to you. Are you there?
Yes.
Okay. So this is Ministry of Interior. PO Box mentions it, and it's 5th of January, 2017. The Director General, CID, Ghana Police Service, Headquarters, Accra. Application for permission to import safety cartridges. Now, it says reference is made to MS Yatco Ghana, letter dated 8th July 2016 on the above subject. Permission is hereby granted to MS Yatco to import the underlisted explosives and accessories for the use of their clients who are all engaged in mining and quarry sectors. 20,000 cases of 500 cases of 500 pieces of shotgun cartridges, 4,000 pieces of hunting shotguns, 4,000 pieces of hunting shotguns, 500 boxes of percussion caps. The purpose of this note is to request you to issue the company with the import permit. This permit is not transferable. This permit does not require the authorization of ECOWAS. And your signature is there, Minister for Interior, Honorable James Agaga, Deputy Minister. Those are the details.
So, Evans, all right. So, granted that this is my document, I haven't seen the signature on it. So, granted, you see that it is a request for an import permit to issue. We're saying, when was the import permit issued? The import permit was issued not by the NDC administration. So you cannot absolve this administration of any blame. Now, we're saying that the security situation has changed. And so the government ought to be circumspect when it comes to giving authorizations for future arms importations into this country. What is wrong with that, Evans? What is wrong with that? So granted that I even signed the document that you have just read, it is an authorization for an import permit to issue. When was the import permit issued? Do you have those facts at your disposal, Evan?
The information minister, as far as I'm concerned, has not provided those additional facts.
So he should provide those additional facts so that we are all on the same page. When was the import permit issued? I didn't issue the import permit. I only granted permission as far back as 2017 when we were still in government. The import permit must have been issued in 2019. Now, with this NDC statement is simply saying that in view of the changed security situation in our country, the president should consider the option of placing a moratorium on the issuance of import permits moving forward and to ensure that the arms already imported, because we concede the fact that nothing untoward legally has happened. And so they should consider the option of tracking the sale and purchase of those arms so that they don't fall into the hands of bandits, hooligans, and vigilantes.
Yes.
That is the import of the NDC statement.
No, but
How is that out of place?
the information minister I heard in the sound we played earlier said that they have right now put the consignment in a designated area, and security officers are keeping watch on this. But I want you to hold the line because there's some clarity I need to get on the it appears there are two different instances where the information minister alleges that you authorized the importation of arms by YATCO. And my colleague, Joseph Akablake, just returned from that press conference. Joseph, it appears to me from the sound we played earlier, and just press conference just ended, so you just rushed in here, that there were two different instances that the information minister was referring to. One, the first instance, the cache of arms initially seized last week. That was issued in a different time frame than the second part, which is the one for the quarries and the mines. So these are two different authorizations and permits the information was talking about, correct?
So this particular, the letter he put out relates to that one, the one
Which
that
one?
was seized at the Tema Port one.
Okay.
But he makes the point that following that seizure and discovery of this particular letter, they've carried out series of audits, and they realized that there are other individuals that have also been granted such permits to import the weapons into the country for private use.
So the one that was issued on the 5th of January was the one that was initially seized at the Tema Port last week.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
And it includes the arms for the mines and the quarry.
Yes.
Okay, and that's what he says that Mr. Gaga signed off.
Yes, in fact, the copies of the letter that they put out list the nature of the guns that were supposed to come out.
We just read that out. There is a question that James Agaga had just asked. I don't know whether the information minister addressed it, because if you read that letter was a request to the police to grant a permit to YATCO to carry out the importation. That's the final bit of that letter, right?
Yes.
And did the information minister tell the press when that the police indeed, carried out the instructions of the Interior Ministry?
There was no reference to when that instruction was carried out, but the information minister was clear in his mind that the approval was given by Mr. Agauga, and that in fact they as government were not aware till this issue came up, and that is when they started an audit, and they've come up with this letter and realized that there are also other similar letters in terms of approvals that were given to various companies to import the weapons.
Mr. Gaga, that's a clarification that we have from the Information Ministry following the press conference. Your reaction?
I think my initial comments still stand. We must have given some sanction for an import permit to issue. Fundamental question is, when did the import permit issue? The import permit certainly did not issue on the 5th of January 2017. It was issued on a later date. We're saying that the security situation in the country has changed rapidly. That should not be lost on anybody. And so the statement, if I understand its import, is that in the face of the changed security circumstances of our country, let there be a moratorium. The NDC did that, time without number when we were in office. We did that. You place a moratorium, and that is the call the NDC statement extends to the president. What's wrong with that?
So this is the fundamental point, though. At this moment, you are calling for a moratorium on the in the importation of arms. The government's point is that when you were issuing all these permits, and they say they have far more than they just produced today, were you not aware that the arms that you were given permit to import it were a threat to our security, which is really the concern you've raised yesterday in your statement?
Evans,
and they raised the scepter of double standards.
Our statement should be read as a whole. We have alluded to the issue of unmitigated robberies in recent times. Is that factual or not? I have told you in my earlier submission that in 2017 alone, by end of 2017, the evidence available, and this is public, is that armed robberies had shot up by a staggering figure of 27%. In the first quarter of 2018 alone, that figure saw an exponential, increase. So in the first quarter alone, we recorded close to 1,000 cases of armed robbery. The situation is not getting any better. Ayawaso also happened. Arms were used. Apart from that, terrorism is staring us in the face. Our northern frontier is under attack. That was not the case in 2017. That was not the situation in 2017. And so what's wrong if the NDC admonishes the MPC administration that moving forward, let us consider the option.
But finally, Ms. Agaga, fundamentally, and there's a pointed line in your statement when you directly accuse this government of giving the authorization, when that authorization, really, as we've seen, was given by your good self.
Evans, I have not said that it is illegal to issue authorization for arms to be.
But that is what the NDC statement sought to portray. That why they say they are concerned, they are alarmed. In fact, they say they are alarmed that this government had given the authorization. That alarm should be directed at your good self because you signed the permission for the permit to be granted.
I have read the NDC statement. The NDC statement clearly makes reference to the Arms and Ammunition Act 1972. And that is the law which empowers the Interior Ministry to issue permits for arms importation. So there's nothing wrong with that legally. But we're saying that the times we find ourselves in, 2017 January is not the same as April or like May 2019.
So fundamentally for you, because the security circumstances have changed, the authorization you granted should have been stopped by this current government. Is that your argument?
Or suspended altogether.
I'm grateful that you joined us. That is James Agaga. He's a former Deputy Interior Minister. I want to join us on Newsnight because we have the controversy over the latest Economics Intelligence Unit for you. Very fascinating report there and reactions coming in from the NDC and the MPP as well.